This is the Justicefighter podcast.
Justicefighter podcast.
With attorney Gerald Griggs.
Attorney G.
Where we have conversations on social justice, civil rights, and political news that affects us all.
It affects us all.
Let attorney Griggs put you on game. Only on the Justicefighter podcast, y'all.
What's going on, y'all? Guys, it's attorney Gerald Griggs of Justicefighter, and you're live on Justicefighter podcast. And we have a phenomenal guest today, Amanda Edwards, and she's running for U.S. Senate in Texas. I had a conversation with her a few weeks ago, and I'm super excited about her campaign. Amanda, introduce yourself to the people.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. This is Amanda Edwards. I'm running for U.S. Senate from the state of Texas, and currently am in the middle of our Democratic primary election. Today is a Super Tuesday, so Texas is a Super Tuesday state, and we are in between polling locations as we speak.
So how is everything going? I saw you picked up a lot of huge endorsements, one of which Tina Knowles just endorsed, Tina Lawson, Beyonce's mother just endorsed you, and a lot of other groups have endorsed you. So how is it going so far?
Absolutely. It's going great. We have gotten such a broad spectrum of support across the board. We got the Dallas Morning News endorsement, San Antonio Express News, Beaumont. We've had Miss Tina Knowles Lawson. We've had her support for quite some time, but she made another declaration of support, if you will, this morning or last night. And so we've had the great pleasure of having a broad spectrum of supporters and organizations and grassroots individuals who are behind our campaign. One of the things that has been key in terms of me developing my base of support has been the fact that I have been serving about 2.3 million Texans over the last 4 years as an at-large Houston City Council member. And so we have a lot of our constituents in the community who are on board already, who are now, of course, changing direction and supporting me for this U.S. Senate seat. And we found that when we go to places all across the state, we've gotten a similar response, which is people just want somebody in office who is going to do what they say they're going to do and then focus on the results that we talk about on these campaign trails. I think people have had enough with just hearing rhetoric, and people want to see the changes we talk about rather than just hear the speeches. And that's what I'm about. That's why I'm running. And that's why we're going to have this huge shift in what is happening in our political paradigm in Washington as a result.
And so I'm really excited to talk to you about what's going on in Texas, because the last time I spoke with you, you were talking about the dynamics in Texas shifting. And I mean, that's a surprise for people outside of Texas. But can you kind of talk to us about what's going on in Texas?
Absolutely. So just to kind of give you some stats on this, since the last election cycle, or since the 2016 cycle, let me say that, Texas has generated more than about 2.6 million newly registered voters, so well over that amount. And of that amount, you have over 1.6 million of those who are either people of color and or under the age of 25 years old, which means that Texas and its electorate are changing right before your eyes in a very drastic way and very quickly. This is not the Texas that people have normally seen or viewed with the stereotype associated with it. Texas is diversifying, just between, to give you some sense of this, between the two major metropolitan cities in Texas, Dallas and Houston being the larger of the two, that's over 50% of the Democratic base of voters right there. Wow. So it's a very different landscape than what most people realize, which is why when Beto ran in 2018, he came within 215,000 votes of actually winning that whole election. He could have won that election, y'all, and 18. And so now you have an opponent. Now we have an opponent in John Cornyn, who not only is someone who has been, doing some of the things that are inconsistent with Texas values and U.S. values in terms of people needing access to health care and economic opportunities and voting in the wrong direction on those types of issues. But besides for that, he's actually become very vulnerable because of his alignment with Donald Trump. He's been 95% aligned with Donald Trump. And consequently, he's actually eroded his own base of support away. He's been supported all of these years by moderate Republicans who no longer recognize him. And they are, in fact, I was just texting with some of my folks at the polls that people were saying things like, I voted for a Democrat for the very first time. They voted for me. Right. And not because they, may be fully a Democrat, it's just that they want change from the political nonsense that's going on right now. And you see Democrats getting on board, and you see independents getting on board. And that's exactly how we're going to go about winning this general election. But of course, I've got to get out of this primary first. And I got those endorsements from the Dallas Morning News and some others because of the fact that I have a pragmatic approach to getting things done in a way that will make me effective. And that ultimately is the job. But of course, we lose sight of that among some of our political fighting that we embark upon instead of doing the work of the people.
Yeah, definitely. And kind of talk to the people about your background, how you matriculated to run, kind of educational background.
Absolutely. So I am a product of public high school in Houston. After I graduated, I went to Emory University in Atlanta. I was a poli-sci major, community building and social change fellow. So that's when I started to learn about what's the difference between top-down approaches versus working alongside community for long-term sustainable change. And that's been a building block of the way I see leadership, and especially on this level. I then had the opportunity to work on Capitol Hill for Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. After that, I went on to Washington. After I left Washington, I went to Boston, where I went to Harvard for law school. It was at Harvard where I first encountered Elizabeth Warren as I was working for her as a contributor on her blog for the middle class. I was her healthcare contributor. And then I got a chance to move down to New Orleans after Katrina. I started a program for kids, teaching them how to use writing as a tool of empowerment. And I also had a federal clerkship there, and eventually moved back home to Houston because, as you know, you don't have to have a physical storm for there to be need in the community. And so I decided I would get just as involved in the Houston community as I had been in New Orleans with my program. And so I came back to Houston, which is where I'm from, and I started to practice law as a municipal finance attorney. And with that work, I was getting a chance to build schools and hospitals and other things related to that. And I was also getting to work with nonprofit organizations, serving on boards of directors, and eventually in 2015 decided that I would run for city council at large, which covers about 2.3 million people. And I remember at that time they said, that race is going to be too big for her. It's her first race. It's too many people. She doesn't have political, hasn't paid political dues. And I saw it differently. I didn't think I had to pay political dues. My thought is, if I'm paying dues with the people, isn't that what matters most? And so not only did we, completely internalize that message, but we did so in a way that got us more votes than anybody running for office, including our mayor, because we focused on the people and results. And then, of course, when I got into office, it was then time to do the work. And so I started our tech and innovation task force for our city, which has now led to a brand new innovation district that's under construction. I've also done a lot to help reduce disparities that women and minority businesses face in terms of accessing traditional forms of capital like bank loans. Those are the kinds of things that can help to really stabilize or reinvigorate our communities if we have enough focus on actually resolving some of these challenges. And that's what has been kind of my approach. I wasn't thinking about running for U.S. Senate until after the 2018 cycle took place and saw Beto get within 215,000 votes. And of course, when he did that, what we saw was that Texas was ripe for change, as I mentioned previously. The electorate was changing so drastically, and what we learned from Beto's race is that he did very well with getting persuadable voters in the fold, like those people I was just describing to you who, said, oh, I usually don't vote in the Democratic primary. They came out in the fold. They voted for Beto. But we also need to do better with regard to our communities of color. People of color registered in high numbers in that 18 cycle, but they didn't come out to vote in those high numbers. They were under 50% of their registered numbers. The same held true with respect to people under the age of 35. So if you could get a candidate who could help to not only get those persuadable voters to come back into the fold, but also build upon that and get communities of color and people under the age of 35, you'll have the votes necessary in order to win against John Cornyn. And that's, of course, what the purpose of all of this is. It's not to get close. We want to see this man unseated because he has been bad for Texas and bad for America.
Definitely, definitely. And I'm excited to talk about that coalition because I think for a lot of people, they overlook, the under 40 crowd, the crowd of people of color, particularly African American and Latino voters. So what are you doing to engage them where they are? Because I hear a lot of them registering, but I don't see candidates connecting directly with them.
Yes, I mean, you got to meet them where they are, get them registered, and understanding the nexus in their lives between them casting their vote and actually seeing the changes that they need to see. So I was at Prairie View A&M University about a week ago, and that was the question we were addressing with students, because people say, well, it's not enough just to say your ancestors fought for this right. And that's true. For some people, it's not. Now, for some, it is, and some it's not. So for those that it's not, their question was, how do we convince others on campus? Because, of course, the people who were there are already interested in being engaged, right?
Yes.
But how do we convince those that are not in this space? How do we convince them that their voice should matter and that this process is something that's important and they should participate in? And I just said, talk about the things that are core, essential to their lives. I don't know of an issue that can't be more essential to a college student's life than the cost of going to college.
Exactly.
Access to education. Tuition costs are astronomical. I told you I went to Emory and Harvard. Emory was $36,000 a year when I was a student, and now it's $55,000 a year. Harvard was $50,000 a year when I was a student. Now it's over $70,000 a year. And these kids and these students are not getting any better access to any jobs. I probably get paid just as much as they do when I got out of school. And, the debt was much significantly lower. And so, it's a problem because there's not been any cost containment in terms of the institutions themselves. They just continue to raise those tuition costs and pass those costs on to the consumer, which happens to be the student. So students have the equivalent of a mortgage before they even get out of school. And they've never even gone into an open house before. And so we've got to, relate our messaging to the things that matter to students. And, when you're talking about young people and when you're talking about those that are getting out of school, affordable housing is a big deal. I hear that a lot. People say, I'm still living with my parents, or, they can't find it to be accessible. So those are the things that we have got to focus on in order to start to see a shift in who's turning out, who's willing to participate in this election cycle. People have to know that you're talking to them and that you're not just talking to them to get their vote. You're actually going to do the things that you say you're going to do.
Yeah, and that's what we're finding a lot here in the ground in Georgia. And, of course, Georgia's not a Super Tuesday state, but we have early voting, so early voting started. But how are you seeing the turnout in Texas being a Super Tuesday state? What are you seeing as you're going?
Yeah,
from
we
each
see
polling
heavy
location?
turnout at the backside. Yeah, it's a heavy turnout on the backside because you got to think about this. When I voted on the 18th of July, the beginning of early vote. Mm-hmm. When I cast my vote, a number of the candidates that were running for office are no longer running. So a lot of people waited to see who was going to drop out before they cast their vote. So you're seeing, heavy traffic today. You saw heavy traffic at the end with respect to, we saw heavy traffic at the end of early vote as well. So we're looking at that. We're seeing that. And I think that we should be encouraged. It was supposed to be major storms. We're not seeing any rain, which is good. So we're excited. I think there's going to be some very high turnout today as far as what we've seen. We've been out since 7 this morning, and it's been good turnout.
Okay, well, that's
great
good.
Turnout.
That's good to hear. I'm excited about everything that's going on.
And a lot of it is not traditional.
Oh, okay, that's good to hear too. So let's fast forward. Let's hope that you get through the primary. Once you get through the primary, what is your game plan on taking on Senator Cornyn and defeating him and becoming, I believe you'd be the first African-American senator from Texas. Is that correct?
That would be correct.
Yes.
Yeah, the game plan is simple. The game plan is get those persuadable voters back out. Those are the people in the middle, the independent voters, those that don't feel comfortable with where we're heading, where the Republican Party heads, the suburban voters. Those folks that turned out extremely well. We got to get them back out. But we also have to galvanize more of our base. Mm-hmm. And so we got to talk to our communities of color, and they want to know Well, why should I believe you? We've seen all of the people making promises on these campaign trails. Why should I believe you that it's going to be different this time? When Harvey happened in 2017 in my community, I remember I had to organize hundreds of volunteers to go check on some of our seniors who weren't removing walls from their homes. Well, when I'd step foot in the doorsteps in a lot of the instances, they'd say to me, well, are you up for re-election? Because they weren't used to seeing government officials showing up outside of the election process. And that dysfunction has to change. It was the second worst disaster in U.S. history in terms of dollars and cents. And they were surprised to see me standing there because that's what typically is the case. You come when you need something. Well, we've got to reverse that course. And so for people who have been exploited in that way or feel like democracy doesn't work for them, a lot of those folks are the types of folks who would have registered to turn out, but didn't actually turn out and vote. And that's the contingency we got to talk to. And I think I'm uniquely positioned to get their confidence restored because of the fact that I can say to them when they ask me, well, why should I believe you? And the answer is because it has been different for the communities that I've represented, and it has made a difference in their lives. Having a track record that I can point to that demonstrates a commitment to those communities, and not just a presence, but an actual effectiveness in dealing with those communities, I think is key to being able to bring those communities and constituencies out. The historic nature of the race will bring more people out, and it'll also bring those 35-year-olds and younger. I'm a millennial, so I'm an older millennial, but I'm a millennial. So I think that will also be encouraging to folks too, because they'll see that ascriptive representation as well.
That's good to hear. And so I'm hopeful that everything works out. My final question is that hopefully you beat Senator Cornyn. Your seat would be one of the new seats in the Senate that potentially could flip the Senate back to Democratic hands. Do you expect to work hand in hand with the administration, hopefully if that's a Democratic administration, to push through progressive reforms that we can start seeing the change that began with President Obama? Kind of took a step backward with this individual that's in the White House now, but hopefully can move forward with a new Senate and a new president.
I stand ready to work, and absolutely I will work with whomever I need to work with in order to get the job done. And I am someone who, it's amazing what you can do when you're not concerned with who gets the credit for doing it. And you've got to have the mission be the people, and what your accountability and your reward is how much you can do for your community and how much you can impact change. And that to me is how I measure success in that role.
That's definitely good to hear. So any last thoughts as we close out? What's the last closing statement you want to make to the people? Encourage
everyone in your state, a Super Tuesday state, anybody who has an election today, please go out to vote. And remember, it is not what time you cast the vote, it's what time you get in line to cast your vote. Do not get out of line. You hear this all the time. People getting out of line because it's after 7 o'clock. Don't do that. 7 o'clock, it closes in here, and it closes here at 7 o'clock. So you stay in line, and you get in line before 7 o'clock. You stay in that line. And I just want to encourage people, don't let bad weather or anything else discourage you from amplifying your voice, because after this point, it just becomes commentary. We actually have an opportunity to use your voice at this moment to actually make an impact and have influence. And that's what you have to do in order to see change in the communities that we deserve.
Well, I appreciate everything you're doing for the community. I wish you luck today. I look forward to you getting out of the primary, and we're supporting you in the general election, and this platform will always be open to you. You're on Justicefighter podcast, so I appreciate you, Amanda.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Okay, you have a great day. And again, this is Attorney Gerald Griggs with the Justicefighter podcast on the Justice Media Network. Thank you again to Amanda Edwards for stepping into the pod. We'll see you next time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
This is the Justicefighter podcast.
Justicefighter podcast.
With Attorney Gerald Griggs.
Attorney G.
Where we have conversations on social justice, civil rights, and political news that affects us all. Let Attorney Griggs put you on game. Only on the Justicefighter podcast, y'all.